Hi, sixth graders. Welcome to your December book talk. It is crazy that we are already in the month of December, but excited to talk about some new books for this month and getting you into your winter break. And before we do, I thought we'd talk a little bit about how hard it maybe is right now to just establish those reading habits and find time to read something good. I don't know about you, but I'm finding myself sometimes struggling to find time to read these days. There's a lot to distract us with, whether it be schoolwork or television, being outside in this nice weather, or at least today it is. Whatever it might be, there just might not be that time where you feel like sitting down and reading for fun, reading for pleasure. And even if there is that time, maybe reading isn't the thing that you're doing, or you might sit down and try to read and you find yourself distracted. You might find that your mind starts to wander, or it's hard to get into a good book. So I thought I'd focus a little bit on that in our presentation today. One thing I wanted to mention is that just keeping reading materials handy is a really big thing, because sometimes you have that free time and then you realize that you don't have anything actually nearby to read. So one thing to keep in mind is to have the reading materials that you want just next to your bed, in your backpack, wherever it is, whether that be that you've got a hard copy of a book, or you're using an e-reader, whether it's your iPad or you have a Nook or a Kindle or something else like that. You might be picking up books at our library. Our library is still open, and placing holds on those books and going to pick them up. Maybe you're using Mac and Via. Maybe you're using our Dakota County libraries, the public libraries, to get books. Wherever you are getting a hold of your reading materials, make sure that you always have something else in mind and something else that you're going to be ready to read, so that when you are ready, when you have the time to do it, you've got that next thing set. Another idea is to connect reading to your everyday life and making it a part of your daily schedule. For your ELA class, this might already be built in. You may be already asked to read 15 or 20 minutes a day. And so this might already be a part of your everyday schedule, Monday through Friday. If it isn't, or if it hasn't been up to now, or especially when it comes to the weekend, think about where reading might become part of your everyday life. When you wake up, is it part of your life that you're going to be reading in the morning? Do you read before you go to bed? Are you someone who, before dinner time, as your family's getting ready to sit down for a meal, is that a time that you have a little bit of quiet to read? Think about those times of your day that can become part of the routine, when reading is, part of what makes your day your day. This might seem like a duh, but if reading is not connected to your hobbies or your personal interests, it's not going to be something that you're going to continue to stay interested in. So finding things that you care about, a topic that you care about, is going to be important. I'm going to be sharing some books today, and probably within seconds, you'll get a sense of whether or not the book sounds interesting, because it might connect to a hobby or a personal interest of yours, or it might not. Consider books about, or magazine articles or online articles, graphic novels, whatever it is you're reading, about those things that you are interested in, whether it's sports or music or the arts or animals. What do you like to learn about? And reach out to look for things to read about those topics. And lastly, getting your recommendations, from friends as well. Your teachers, your librarian, like myself, are great to get ideas for things to read, but also asking your classmates and your friends for those recommendations. So asking, what are you reading, is a terrific way to find out what are some other things that might direct your reading choices. Speaking of reading and making those selections, we do have a lot of new books that are coming into the library in the next few weeks, because with our Scholastic Book Fair that just ended the past couple of days here online, we ordered almost 50 new books to come into the library. This is obviously not all of them, but a few that I wanted to highlight, and a few of these will be available in the library very soon. Wanted to mention that there will be these books along with many others available. You'll want to take a look on the Destiny Discover catalog for Scholastic Book Fair books. Those will go up on that top banner so that you can place those books on hold. Be sure if there's any of these that you are interested in, or if there were other books on that book fair, website that you want to know more about. If you'd like to know if we ordered them, please reach out and ask, and we'd be happy to let you know and get you on the waiting list for those books to get them checked out. Lots of good ones, not only the ones that are listed right here on this page, but many others too. Well, let's get into our books for today. These are books already in the library, so you could place these books on hold immediately. And I hope that at least one of them sounds like a great book to add to your reading list. Ungifted by Gordon Korman is in our humor section. This is the first in a 2-book collection. Funny books about a kid named Donovan Curtis. He has never ever been called gifted. He has been called trouble. He's been called a prankster before. Donovan loves to play jokes on people, and he takes it one step too far at the beginning of the story. Winds up in the middle school principal's office. The principal decides that, they've had enough. They're going to throw Donovan into the detention program after school. But the paperwork gets all mixed up, and instead of Donovan ending up in detention, Donovan winds up in the gifted and talented program. Donovan thinks this is fantastic because what better place for someone like him? He loves to trick people and thinks, well, no problem. He can trick these incredibly smart kids into thinking that he's just as smart and talented as they are. But it proves a lot harder than he thought. This is the story of him with all kinds of, trouble, things that don't go the way he expects. There's an experiment with, his sister that goes wrong. There's a middle school dance that is dramatic to a fault. There's a robot involved, as you can see from the cover, and I won't spoil that part for you, but just a very, very funny story about a kid who thinks that he can fool people, and, it just doesn't go the way he expects. This is Ungifted. If you've already read this one, we also have Super Gifted in the library. Pax by Sarah Pennypacker is perfect for animal lovers and those who like a good friendship story. It is an adventure because it's the story of a journey for both an animal and a person. Pax was only a baby fox when his boy, Peter, rescued him. Peter and Pax have been best friends ever since. They've lived together, and Peter and Pax are riding in a car together with Peter's dad one day, and Peter is crying, and Pax can't figure out why. Now, the story is unique because it's written from the perspective of 2 different characters. Some chapters are written from Peter's point of view, and others are written from Pax's point of view, the fox. Well, in this car ride, Peter and Pax and Peter's dad all get out of the car once they stop, and Peter takes a toy army soldier out of his pocket, as you can see here on the screen. And that little toy soldier, Pax is excited about because he knows this game. Peter throws the toy soldier and Pax runs to get it, and he picks it up in his mouth and he brings it back like a game of fetch that you'd play with a dog. And so when Peter takes out this toy and throws it this time into a clearing of a forest, Pax runs to get it, brings it, in his mouth and turns around to bring it back to Peter. But all Pax sees is the tail lights of the car. Peter and his dad have left, and Pax is alone in this forest. Peter and his dad are headed to Peter's grandfather's house because Peter's dad is fighting in a war. And Peter has to live with his grandpa, and Grandpa has said, no foxes allowed. Peter's devastated. He's sad. He can't believe he has to leave his best friend out in the woods. And in fact, he has a great deal of regret about that. He gets to his grandpa's and he doesn't even make it through the night without packing up a backpack and leaving to go and find Pax. And Pax, in the meantime, is very lonely and scared in the forest alone, and he decides he's going to set off and find wherever his human, his boy, Peter, has gone. So this is the story of the two of them journeying to find one another and where they are to try to meet up again. It's a beautifully written story by Penny Packer. I think you'll love it. Football Genius by Tim Green is an unusual story. It's a sports story, obviously, very much football action. And Tim Green, he just knows his sports stuff. You feel like you're right out there on the field, like you're a spectator of the game. But this is largely a story about a kid with almost a special power. He can predict football plays before they happen. He doesn't know why he has this gift. Everything else about this story is very realistic, but for whatever reason, he can predict what's going to happen for any player, any team, any play before it happens. This is great for Troy's single mom who is working for the Atlanta Falcons. Troy sees this job for his mom as an opportunity for him because he knows he can show this team what he can do. And the Falcons have not had a very successful career lately. So Troy decides he's going to tell somebody. He's going to let them know that he has this ability. He can tell them what's going to happen first and what's going to happen next, and he can make these predictions, and all of a sudden this team, if they listen to him, is going to start to do much better. Of course, this is going to take some convincing because who would believe a 12-year-old kid could predict what's going to happen? And then, of course, things aren't going to go as well as, you'd hope, because it would make a very interesting book if that were the case. Troy and his friends come up with a plan to get the attention of one player in particular, a linebacker by the name of Seth Holloway. And Seth believes them, but again, even though this starts off going well at first, there are going to be quite a few roadblocks throughout. Football Genius by Tim Green. What if you had this power? And what could that kind of power do? Great book. Speaking of another great book, The Lightning Thief was something for everyone. Rick Riordan has written this one, part of a series, and anyone who's read the Percy Jackson books knows that there is adventure, there's fantasy, there's mythology, there's humor. These stories truly have something for all. Percy's a really good kid, but he can't seem to focus on his schoolwork. And really, I don't know if anyone could blame him because he could have sworn his pre-algebra teacher, I think it is, has turned into a monster and tried to kill him. And I don't know about you, but I'd have a hard time focusing on getting my math done if I thought my life was in danger. Percy's mom finds out, though. She knows it's time he knows the truth about where he actually came from and decides to send Percy to Camp Half-Blood, which is a summer camp for demigods. And he learns he is half human and half god because his father, that he never knew, is Poseidon, god of the sea. And from there's this huge mystery that unfolds. He meets these other kids who are also half human and half god. And of course, there's this huge war going on amongst the gods, and the kids are going to get involved in it. And that's why this book becomes this huge series. And again, with the mythology piece, if you don't know much about Greek mythology, this book brings those elements in. Lots of humor to this story because Percy is not necessarily set up or built for this kind of warfare. He's not exactly the most adventure-seeking kid at the beginning, and he doesn't make the smartest choices all the time. So there's a lot of funny scenes to be had in this book. If you've seen the movie, try to not let that deter you if you haven't read these books, because the books are far better. I know it's not Halloween anymore, and so you may not be in the mood for a ghost story, but in case you still are, because I always am, Mary Downing Hahn writes fabulous ones, and The Ghost of Crutchfield Hall is one of my favorites. This is about a girl who is 12 when she leaves an orphanage where she's been living since her parents passed away. A great aunt and uncle come along and they invite her to come live with them. And they're inviting her to Crutchfield Hall, which is this old manor house in kind of the countryside in England. And she figures, well, anything's going to be better than living in an orphanage. So, sure, I'll go with you. But Florence is her name, and she does not expect what she sees at Crutchfield Hall. She doesn't expect that the ghost of her cousin Sophia, who haunts the hall, is going to be coming up with a plan to use Florence to help her achieve her murderous goals. Because Florence is trying to, kill people. And Florence doesn't necessarily want to do any of that. In fact, she's trying to convince other people in the house, like her aunt and uncle, that Sophia is there and that she's haunting everybody and that she's a ghost and all this. And she's trying to stop Sophia before it's too late, but people aren't believing her, and there's all that element. So it's a great ghost story. It's about trying to convince people of something when they don't believe it's true. It's wonderful. So if you like, again, a good ghost story, in this case, our main character, is working to try to fight against the ghost, but the ghost wants her help. It's kind of an interesting twist. Try this one out. And one last story, One for the Murphys by Linda Mullally Hunt. If you've not yet read this one, it's one of my favorites in realistic fiction. This is about a girl who also has kind of had a rough start. She grew up in Las Vegas with her mom, and her mom is still around, but her mom really has struggled to take good care of her. And as a result, Carly has had to be put into foster care. And so Carly has, kind of had a bad situation. She's struggled in these foster homes. She doesn't really want to allow anyone into her life. She's very guarded, and she's decided that she wants really to not even connect herself with a family because she knows that means she could get hurt. And her mom has let her down over and over and over again. That's sort of what she has learned. So when she gets connected to the Murphy family, a really kind of upbeat family. They've got 3 boys. They seem super happy, not perfect. No family's perfect, but happy. She is sort of blindsided. She doesn't know exactly what is going on, and she figures there's no family that's actually like this, so they can't be real. And so she's keeping her distance. And then Mrs. Murphy really wants Carly to know that she is part of the family, and Mrs. Murphy keeps including her in things, even when Carly keeps shutting her down. But over time, Carly realizes this family is for real. They make mistakes, they get mad at each other, they fight, but they also care a lot, and they love each other, and they forgive each other, and they work through their problems, and they aren't perfect, but they do care, and they work at it. And that's what life's about, and that's what family's about. And then she decides she wants to be part of that, and they want her to be. And the moment that she decides that, something else happens that complicates things. This is a great realistic fiction story about a character trying to figure out what family is and how she wants to become part of it. I hope that you'll give this one a try if you've not read this book. Today, I hope you'll give some thought to how can you establish for yourself, as you're in this second trimester of school, that reading habit for you. How do you find a way to get back into a reading habit for pleasure if you've fallen kind of out of it? How do you find some good books for yourself? Please message on Schoology if you're struggling to find a good book to read. Even if that just means messaging me and saying, hey, I haven't had a good book to read in a long time and I don't know where to start. I am here and I would love to help. Thanks so much for your attention. I hope that something here sounded good to you, and happy reading.